In this lesson, we'll continue adding our final details into our model. So we'll be adding the side cuts in this particular lesson. If we go into our front view, zoom out just a little, and I'll switch on the sketch layer, it'll be these 3 cuts that we'll be adding in. So all I'm going to do for these is start with a circle. I'm going to array that along a line or along a curve. And then when I have the shapes and the locations I want, because we do have a symmetrical model, I'll just mirror the cutting pieces over and we'll work that way. So as I said, I'll start with the curve and I'm just going to kind of eyeball this. It looks like the center would be out here-ish. And I'm going to be very careful I don't get a weird snap or something like that happening. So I'm going to hold down my Alt key and I get it to about what looks to be about the right size. Again, I'm working from a sketch. It's not going to be perfect, and you can see even here I've gone a little large with this. So what I'll do is I have Gumball on. I'm just going to hold down my Shift key and then drag this little green square. And by holding down the Shift key, I'm actually constraining it. That looks pretty good, I think. Maybe we'll go just a little smaller. I don't want these to be too large when we end up making them, because we are going to cut these and then we'll put some fillets. So they will end up looking a little bit larger. All right, and I'm going to hold down the Alt key and press my arrow down. That's the nudge command. And I'll just nudge that down a little. I think that looks a bit better. Okay, I want to have 3 of these, but I want to space them equally along here. So the easy way to do that is to duplicate the edge. And I'm just going to duplicate the edge of my model here. And as I said, I'm going to do an array along a curve, but I want this curve to start and stop in certain places. I don't want to have this circle array along the entire length of the curve. So I'm just going to split the curve. So I'll choose split, and I'm just going to split it by a point. So I can choose point. And now I can just kind of click wherever I want that split to be. So I'm going to turn on my center snap, and I want the first split to be right in line with the center of this circle. So I hover my cursor near the circle and click. And then I want my second split, and this one I'll have to eyeball just a little, is I want it to line up with about wherever the center point for this guy would be. So I'm going to guess it's about there. And I've clicked. And now if I click back on these curves, and sometimes you can see it gets a little hard to select things. Let me switch off that. And I'll click off my main body for now. So now I've split this curve into 3 pieces. I can delete the pieces I don't need. And there we go. We'll just kind of work with the main body switched off for now to make this a little clearer what we're doing. So I'll go into my array commands, and I'm just going to use this array along curve. So I'll select the object to array, which is this curve, hit enter, and now my path curve, which is that one. Now by default it throws a 2 up there. I want there to be 3 items, and you always include the original item in that count. After you finish this command, we want 3 circles to remain. So if you think about it that way, it kind of makes sense. So I'll hit OK, and then I'll switch my sketches back on just to make sure I kind of got what I want. And right now these are all dipping the same distance into this body. And I can see that this one's actually pulled out a little bit. So I'm just going to take these, and I think I'll offset it maybe a 0.2. And then this bottom one, I'll offset another 0.2. And let's pull those out just a little bit. So this one's actually a 0.5 millimeter further out than this top one is. So I'll take my path curve and I'll just delete that. I don't need that anymore. Let's bring back the main bodies just so we can kind of see what's going on. And we'll turn off our sketch. Let's go in the perspective viewport. I want to make sure when I extrude these circles that they do pass through everything. So I'm just going to drag them using the gumball outside the body here. Now I can take those circles, I'll go to solid, extrude planar curve, and I'll choose straight. And notice they're not all lining up. So you can see when I try to extrude those, that it doesn't just go back in the direction I want it to. That may be because of the snaps I used, and the curve may not actually be drawn completely perpendicular to the plane we're on. So let me just transform these using my set XYZ coordinates. And you can see I want to move these in the Y direction. So I'll switch off set X and set Z and hit OK. And I can just snap to one of these, and that'll just force everything to line up. Again, I can go to solid, extrude planar curve, and just drag these. And I want to make sure I go all the way through, so I'm going to drag these way larger than I need them. I'll go into my front view. I'll transform and then mirror. And because we've been working around the center line, I can actually type 0 and hit enter. Hold down my shift key, drag down, and now I know I've placed those in the same location. So we're just going to split this main body now using these poly surfaces. So I'll go to Boolean and then choose split. And I can drag boxes to choose those. And after that applies, I can just delete those parts and hide these. So if I go into my front view, I can select these 3 body pieces. I'm going to type negative 0.5 on my gumball, and then that'll move them in a negative 0.5 amount. And on this side, I'll select them, and I'll move those 0.5 in the opposite direction. Remember, whichever way your arrow is pointing, that's the way the parts will move. So if the arrow is pointing, in this case, over to the right, if I type a positive number, it'll move to the right. If I type a negative number, it'll move to the left. So now we have those, and we just need to Boolean this together. So we'll select this, 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 and this, and then these 3 parts. I'll hit enter, creates a mesh, and we have a nice solid Boolean part. So we're just going to go ahead and throw a small fillet in these parts. So I choose my fillet, and we move these in 0.5. So let's try a 0.3 on these, and I'm going to chain edges. And I'll hit chain edges on all of these before I apply them. Chain edges, enter, then move to this side, click chain edges, enter, chain edges, enter, then chain edges and enter. So that's everything selected that I want. I'll hit the enter key, give that a moment to go ahead and shade these. And I think I can go just a little larger. Let's try a 0.5 and see if that works for us. And make sure we're still good coming around these edges here. Those are probably the trickiest parts. We don't blow out that section. Getting a little close there, but I think we'll be okay. Let me hit enter. And it takes a moment to render that up. And we still have one nice solid piece. There we go. We have our side cuts. And we have our fillets all applied to them. That completes this lesson on building our side cuts.